Our planet has thousands of miles of beaches and coastlines, so it's no surprise that strange and unusual things often wash ashore. From mysterious objects to bizarre creatures, the sea has a way of leaving behind surprises that capture our imagination. In today's video, we're diving into 15 of the strangest things ever found on beaches. Number 15. Prehistoric teeth. It should make sense that animal bones would wash up on the shores eventually, which can make for some pretty cool finds on their own. Maybe you'll find a skeleton of a small fish or the skull of something a little larger. But what about massive, 4-inch long teeth? Because that's what little Sammy Shelton found on the beaches of Suffolk one morning. But these were no ordinary teeth. They belonged to the one-time king of the seas, the Megalodon. The Megalodon usually had about 276 teeth across 5 rows, so it would make a bit of sense that their fossilized teeth turn up now and again. But there's a little more to it. All sharks, both ancient and modern, essentially discard their teeth as they become worn. Scientists are still perplexed as to why sharks' teeth fall out so often, but we do know they grow back in a short amount of time, likely just 1 to 2 days. Many of the teeth we find now are chipped after chomping down on animal bone or hitting neighboring teeth during a feeding, and it's likely that Megalodon went through thousands and thousands of teeth in their lifetime. That's enough teeth to put the shark tooth fairy out of business for good. But little Sammy Shelton's 4-inch tooth was totally intact. The 6-year-old was so excited by his discovery that he took it to school and his beaver club meetings and even slept with it in his bed. But no one could blame him. This is the type of strange find that you want to hang on to forever. Number 14. Tombstones at Ocean Beach. Alright, prepare yourself, because this next aquatic oddity on our list is going to be not only one of the strangest but also one of the creepiest as well. Back in 2014, beachgoers found a pretty grisly scene at Ocean Beach in San Francisco, California. Tombstones that dated all the way back to the late 1800s had washed up on shore. It turns out that at the turn of the century, the population of San Francisco had increased far too quickly, and housing developments were often built on top of existing cemeteries to keep up with demand. To make room for these new housing developments, the city had the gravestones removed and sent to a landfill to be used as seawalls, breakwater, or broken apart and used as other forms of construction materials and infrastructure. But not all these gravestones made it to the landfill and were simply dumped into the San Francisco Bay, where they remained for decades until erosion and strong winds caused the sands to shift, turning the most popular beach in the city into a historic graveyard. And the craziest part about this walk among the tombstones is the fact that they look so much like rocks that already adorn the beach, meaning a whole lot of unsuspecting beachgoers, surfers, and just plain walkers were moving amongst them without even knowing it. The entire area feels like a scene from a horror film, but rest assured, the tombstones of Ocean Beach are very, very real. Number 13. Bones and all. In 2012, on Washington Beach, Washington State, scientists were looking for small spiral shells of extinct animals known as ammonites. The work didn't seem too exciting that morning, and the prospects of what are essentially old shells may not mean much to the outside world. But extraordinary things turn up when we least expect them. That's exactly what happened here. What they found instead of ammonites, and much to their surprise, was an 80-million-year-old dinosaur femur bone. The enormous bone belonged to a theropod, a 2-legged carnivorous dinosaur similar to the ever-popular T-Rex and Velociraptor. Not only was the find just flat-out cool, but it provided scientists with the evidence that dinosaurs once roamed what is now Washington State in the United States. A great question to ask would be, how does something like this even get here? Well, the big old femur bone was buried underneath the earth a long time ago, but with the tide coming in and receding for millions and millions of years, it was able to bring the bone closer and closer to the surface with each passing day. The entire process took millions of years, and these scientists just so happened to be in the right place at the right time when fortune smiled upon them. Just imagine playing fetch with your dog on the beach and they'd come back with this in their mouth. Number 12. Bombs on the beach. It can be cool to find some old, washed-up pieces of history while going for a stroll on the beach. Maybe you stumble upon an old bottle or some rusty cutlery dating back to who knows when. Some old relics of war, like fighter planes and bits of warship, have shown themselves along the coast too. But this strange thing that washed up on the beach is a little more explosive. Back in 2018, some seriously old relics washed up on shore at a pebble beach in Slapton on Devon, just outside of England. While this entry would probably have history buffs excited, it had some of the local beachgoers a little nervous. The strange-looking, round, and large pieces of rusted metal was a lot more than some harmless hunks of metal. Instead, it was an old, unexploded United States M1A1 anti-tank mine from World War II. That means that this dangerous relic had been floating in the seas for at least 70 years and finally found its way to land after a pretty rough storm. But the real question is, how did something like this get here? Anti-tank mines aren't meant to be on land. Well, odds are, it fell from a ship as it was being ferried to battle, or it was simply laid on the beach and hidden under sand for all these years, thanks to the turning of the tides, and it decided to show itself. Of course, the Coast Guard was immediately called to cordon the area off, and the decades-old mine was properly removed by the bomb squad. And what's even crazier was that the very next day, another unexploded bomb washed up on the same beach, perhaps reminding the locals of their nation's history and tumultuous times. Now it's time for today's topic. The quiet morning along a remote stretch of Oregon's rugged coastline turned into chaos when locals discovered something that seemed straight out of a nightmare. A massive shark, larger than any species known today, had washed ashore overnight. Its enormous body stretched across the sand, and its rows of jagged teeth, some nearly the size of a human hand, drew crowds from miles away. Authorities quickly closed off the area as marine biologists and emergency crews arrived to assess the situation. Dr. Marcus Ellery, a researcher from Oregon State University, measured the creature at over 50 feet long, dwarfing even the largest recorded great whites. What puzzled experts most were the deep scars across its body, suggesting violent encounters far below the surface in the unexplored depths of the Pacific. Word spread quickly, and soon speculation flooded social media. Some claimed it was proof of the legendary Megalodon still roaming the oceans, while others believed it to be a mutated deep-sea giant driven ashore by shifting currents. By afternoon, state officials confirmed the shark would be transported to a secure facility for further study. But for those who stood on the sand that day, the terrifying image of the beached predator left one question echoing. What else is hiding in the deep? Number 11. Giant hairballs. If you've ever owned a cat, then you may know what it's like to have to clean up one of its hairballs. It may sound like a myth to some, but these furry felines often swallow their own hair during grooming, and as the old saying goes, better out than in. But what about hitting the beach only to find hundreds of these hairballs dotted all along the coast? Well, that's what happens every now and then on the beaches of Europe and Australia. Under the waters of the southern Australian coast grows something quite spectacular called Neptune's grass. Much like the grass on land, these green strands sway back and forth with the rolling of the tides, often catching small pieces of debris. But much more than a garden decoration, Neptune's grass is important to ocean ecosystems. They play a vital role in improving water quality, absorbing CO2, and exuding oxygen, and they're a natural nursery and refuge for hundreds of species of fish. They're also the foundation of coastal food webs. But how do they form these balls and make it ashore? Well, the remains of this incredibly fibrous underwater grass gather together and form what looks like an animal's hairball, and a big one, try the size of your fist. Eventually, these big, brown fuzz balls wash up on shore. So after a major storm, it's not uncommon for hundreds, if not thousands, of these fur balls to wash up on shore overnight, making for quite the unexpected sight at the beach. But the sad part is many, if not all, of these fur balls of the sea contain hundreds of thousands of pieces of microplastics, all of which are made by humans and find their way into the ocean, harming the local ecosystem. Number 10. Feline francophones. If you like lasagna and hate Mondays, then this last entry is for you, because Garfield phones have been washing up on the shores of Brittany, France, for about 35 years. 2 generations of beachgoers have been able to witness the strange phenomenon, but the occurrence had experts baffled for nearly 4 decades. Why in the hell were these landline telephones in the shape of a cartoon cat washing up on the shore? Well, in March of 2019, they were finally able to find out why, and the answer is actually pretty simple. Back in the 1980s, and at the height of Garfield's fame, a freight boat carrying shipping containers of these telephones encountered a storm while out to sea, causing some of the cargo to fall overboard. One of these shipping containers drifted along with the current and was eventually beached in a small, remote cave. Because the container was open, the ocean's waves would gradually reach in and take a few phones with it. The current always led to the coast of Brittany, France. After the discovery, the Garfield cave was visited by journalists who said that the shipping container, along with a few more Garfield phones, still remains. Number 9. The sandy scene of the crime. In 2017, in South Africa, what looked like a morbid nautical crime scene washed up on shore on 3 separate occasions. The bodies of great white sharks had washed up on the shore, and they all had one thing in common other than being beached. Their livers were missing. While it may be the logical guess that it was humans who removed the livers themselves, that wasn't the case. Is it possible that there's some sort of aquatic chupacabra in the warm waters with a taste for a metallic liver? Or were the sharks subject to some strange ritual involving the organs of carnivores? It certainly made for one unsettling sight, and while the truth may help you rest a bit easier tonight, it's still absolutely nuts. It took a small team of researchers to examine the bodies and perform autopsies to determine that the culprit was none other than orcas. One of these sharks was 16 feet long, weighing 2,500 pounds, so imagine the size of the orcas that took the shark down and then took their livers. And to make things even creepier, one shark was also missing her heart. Although it does sound strange, It turns out that the hearts and livers of these giant great whites are the most nutrient-rich parts of the body, making them the perfect meal for a killer whale. But this also means that orcas knew exactly where on the sharks' bodies to aim and dig in for their meal. It's a pretty amazing example of just how smart some sea creatures can really be. Number 8. Muraway monster. The ocean is larger and deeper than any of us could really ever fathom, and at the end of the day, we have to accept that it holds more secrets than humans could ever uncover. These strange but beautiful motions, and while scientists and researchers have all but ruled out the existence of sea monsters, sometimes we uncover things that really make that hard to believe. Case in point, the Muraway monster. Just one look at this thing is enough to give you the heebie-jeebies. Beachgoers described it as a twisted, alien-like mass, covered in hundreds of black and white barnacles that gave it a pulsating, almost living quality as the tide pushed against it. Some even claimed it looked as though tentacles were trying to break free, fueling wild speculation online that it might be an unknown sea creature. Children clung to their parents, pointing and whispering nervously, while photographers snapped images that spread across the globe within hours. Scientists warned that barnacle-covered driftwood can sometimes appear to breathe as the creatures move their feathery appendages in unison, a motion that unsettled even the bravest onlookers. The Muraway monster became a local legend overnight, drawing crowds that turned the beach into a scene of both wonder and unease. But don't let the name confuse you though. In 2016, on Muraway Beach just outside of Auckland, New Zealand, a piece of flotsam washed ashore that looked like it was straight out of a horror movie. Speculation as to what it was ranged from an old Maori canoe to a giant dead animal. The Muraway monster was such a sight to behold that once its photo was posted on social media, hundreds of beachgoers came out to take a look. But what was it actually? Well, the folks at the New Zealand Marine Sciences Society said that it was just an enormous piece of driftwood that had been covered in gooseneck barnacle. Maybe not as exciting as an alien, but still a once-in-a-lifetime sight. Number 7. Easter egg hunt. The next entry on this list is a bit more festive. One morning on the island of Landjug in Germany in 2017, folks hoping to catch some rays or go for a swim were greeted with thousands of Easter eggs all over the shore. And no one was more excited than the children on the island, because each and every egg, of course, had a toy inside. Locals described the scene as almost surreal, bright plastic eggs scattered across the golden sand, creating the illusion of a giant holiday celebration arranged by the sea itself. Families rushed to the beach, some collecting baskets full of eggs, while others stood amazed at the sheer number rolling in with the waves. Social media quickly lit up with photos and videos, turning the quiet island into the subject of worldwide headlines. For the children of Landjug, it felt like a once-in-a-lifetime treasure hunt, with laughter and excitement echoing across the shoreline. Environmental groups, however, were quick to point out that while this spectacle looked magical, it highlighted the grim reality of plastic pollution at sea. While the phenomenon was both mysterious and maybe even a little fun, what caused these eggs to come ashore was a storm out in the ocean. The eggs were being transported on board freight ships, but when the sea became too choppy, 5 freight containers fell overboard, opening up in the water and spilling out their contents. But even the cleanup was a little fun. When the mayor of the island of Landjug let their kindergartners take as many eggs as they could carry with them, the beach was clean and the children were happy. And while that may sound like something of a win-win situation, it reveals a much sadder story. How many eggs didn't make it to the beach? How many were consumed by unsuspecting sea creatures? And how many are still lodged down at the bottom of the ocean, harming the ecosystem? So while the prospect of waking up to a beach full of vibrant, pastel-colored Easter eggs is kind of nice, it's important to remember that the world's oceans are full of man-made plastic, all of which is incredibly harmful to sea life, which in turn means it's harmful to all land life as well. Number 6. Joined at the hip. Conjoined twins are a very rare phenomenon that occurs when the twins are quite literally attached via a specific part of the body. This happens in about 1 in 189,000 births, with half of them being stillborn and 1/3 usually dying within 24 hours. The occurrence is as unique as it is unfortunate, and it isn't just delegated to humans. Conjoined twins occur out in nature as well, although the odds of coming across one are slim to none. That is, unless you were at a Turkish beach nearly 10 years ago. These bizarre beach finds made headlines back in the summer of 2014. Beached conjoined dolphin twins. This one was found by a tourist in the town of Izmir and could easily be thought of as a hoax, seeing as how finding conjoined twin dolphins in the wild is so incredibly rare. Local witnesses described crowds quickly forming around the shoreline, many stunned at the surreal sight of what appeared to be a two-headed dolphin. Photographs taken that day spread rapidly across newspapers and online platforms, sparking fierce debates about whether it was real or fabricated. Veterinarians and marine biologists who examined the images confirmed that the features were consistent with genuine marine anatomy and not some taxidermy trick. The discovery added a new chapter to marine biology records, highlighting just how little we know about genetic mutations in the ocean. In fact, only 5 have ever been documented. This two-headed dolphin was measured at 1 meter in length, and experts were able to determine that it was just 12 months old. Perhaps what makes the sight even more unusual is that it's the second ever conjoined dolphin to live past the fetal stage. This two-headed dolphin was brought ashore by a storm and likely died before making it to land. And to make the story even stranger, when representatives of a local university came to collect the body to be put on display, it was gone. It could have been even taken by some local teens, secretive researchers, or even swallowed up by the sea again. Number 5. Sandy Hook Love Letters. This next entry on our list will definitely tug at your heartstrings. Most of us will never come across a message in a bottle in our lifetime, especially because the art of letter writing feels all but extinct. It's important to remember, especially for the younger folks out there, that there was a time when if you really wanted to reach someone, all you had to do was reach for a pen and paper. It was a slower, more simpler time when long-distance calls, emails, and text messages were just a twinkle in our eye. And this particular find was both a stark and beautiful reminder of what it meant to love someone so far away. A total of 57 love letters written by a young woman in New Jersey to her lover in Vermont were found by a 14-year-old boy in New Jersey just after Hurricane Sandy hit. The storm had devastated entire communities, but amid the wreckage, this fragile box of letters somehow survived the chaos and washed onto shore. Local residents described it as a miracle, a gentle echo of the past emerging from the violence of the storm. The boy who found them said he felt like he was holding not just paper, but living memories that had traveled across time to reach him. Word of the discovery quickly spread, with neighbors and even reporters gathering to read the tender words of love that spanned decades. The notes were in the middle of the ocean. The incredibly strong winds and currents brought them ashore and unveiled an intimate history decades in the making. The love letters were written all the way up to the eve of a couple's wedding day. They were still sealed in a box, and although they did get wet, the teenager who discovered them was able to dry them out and read all 75 of them, each ending with, "I love you dear and miss you very much. All my love, always, Dottie." And while a box of love letters from the 1940s may not be the strangest thing to wash up on shore, it's certainly the most human and the most heartwarming. Number 4. Portuguese Man o' War. In 2017, at Porthcurno Beach in England, the shore was full of what looked like 1,400 deflated blue and purple balloons. But these balloons were better left untouched, because instead, these were strange, tentacled, multicolored, alien-like organisms that came from the sea. These otherworldly beings were massive Portuguese man-o'-war, an incredibly deadly species of jellyfish with a painful sting and tentacles that can reach lengths of 50 meters. Curious children at first ran toward the strange shapes in the sand, but horrified parents quickly pulled them back once the danger was explained. Wildlife experts rushed to the site, warning that even a single brush from the long, thread-like tentacles could cause severe pain, rashes, or even more dangerous reactions. The sight of so many washed ashore at once left locals stunned, as it was the largest such stranding ever recorded in the region. Volunteers worked tirelessly to mark off areas of the beach, ensuring that no one accidentally wandered too close. The translucent colors of the creatures shimmered under the sunlight, giving them an almost hypnotic beauty that contrasted sharply with their deadly nature. Many visitors remarked that it was like stepping onto an alien landscape, where the ocean had spilled its most surreal and dangerous inhabitants onto dry land. Local media outlets covered the event extensively, drawing both scientific curiosity and public fascination from around the world. While swarms of jellyfish washing up on the shore can be a typical occurrence, the Portuguese man-o'-war is a rare sight not to be messed with. Beachgoers beware. While typically residing in the Atlantic Ocean, scientists believe the incredibly strong winds over the Atlantic caused the currents to cause these beautiful but deadly specimens to come ashore. Naturally, the bathing area in question was closed down until the beach was deemed safe again for humans. Number 3. Strange Sandcastle. While it may be impossible for a sandcastle to wash up on shore, they can still make for some amazing finds when you're down in the sand. So just imagine going down and finding some surreal sandcastles that seemingly popped up overnight. Calvin Seibert is an amazing New York-based artist known for his amazing sandcastles, and these aren't your typical fairy tale castles. Instead, he makes sandcastles that look like the mind-bending work of M.C. Escher. Seibert, who had worked as a sculptor's assistant for nearly 30 years, managed to put everything he learned into the sand. Tourists often stumble upon his creations unexpectedly, gathering in small crowds to marvel at the sharp lines and futuristic designs rising from the shoreline. Children often circle them in awe, wondering how something so fragile can stand so tall against the wind. Photographers flock to capture the castles before the tide inevitably claims them, turning each structure into a fleeting gallery of nature and art. Some locals have even described stumbling upon Seibert sandscapes at dawn as an almost spiritual experience, with the empty beach and surreal architecture combining to create a dreamlike atmosphere. His works have become a talking point in global art circles, often featured in magazines and exhibitions that celebrate impermanent art forms. The results are these perfect, angular structures that have earned him international recognition. Seibert isn't making these modern marvels once a year at a contest. Instead, this is the artist's full-time activity, and while it may not pay the bills just yet, he said in interviews that he does this more than anything else, which would make sense considering the amount of time, energy, effort, and attention to detail it takes to make something like this. But the most beautiful part about his side artwork isn't just how they look or the woodworking techniques that go into them, the fact that they are transitory. Some of these castles can be 8 to 10 feet tall, and for as much time as he spends on them, they'll be gone in half that time. It's not like a building where when it's done, it's there for a lifetime. But on the brighter side, because his medium is simple sand, not only can you work wherever the beaches are, but it's a great excuse to travel the world and experience and experiment with all the different types of sand around the earth. Number 2. The Indonesian sea monster. Imagine walking up and down the beach, minding your own business, enjoying the cool ocean breeze hitting your face, until the wind starts to blow something a little stinkier than salt water into your nostrils. You keep moving along, and the smell only gets worse until finally, it's so putrid you just can't go any further. You look up, and you find something far ghastlier than you could ever imagine. An eldritch, ghostly, monstrous sighting in the middle of the beach. Discovered by a local on a beach in Indonesia, this bizarre find looked like something straight from a horror movie. What turned out to be a 15-meter-long corpse of a baleen whale was originally mistaken for an old, washed-up boat, except it looked like more of a ghost ship than a run-of-the-mill vessel. As word spread, hundreds of curious villagers rushed to the shoreline, some praying and others taking photos, unable to believe such a monstrous carcass had appeared overnight. Rumors swirled that it could be a sea monster or even a supernatural omen, feeding into long-held local legends about spirits of the deep. The sheer scale of the decaying body dwarfed the small fishing boats nearby, making the scene even more surreal and terrifying. Authorities were eventually called in to cordon off the area, fearing that the gases within the body could cause it to rupture. Even scientists who arrived to inspect the remains admitted the appearance was unsettling, with parts of the whale's flesh sloughing off into the waves like melting wax. The stench alone was enough to make some villagers vomit, while others dared to poke at the flesh with sticks before being shooed away by officials. But as researchers got closer, they couldn't help but notice the corpse stank, and it was oozing a strange, thick, red liquid. These were the gases building up in the whale and its blood, which, along with the grease from its body, were seeping into the surrounding water, giving it a haunting red color. The gas accumulating in the body even prevented it from sinking back into the water with the tides. Scientists said that the whale was likely dead at sea and, because of the gas buildup, floated to the ocean surface and rode the waves onto shore. Experts also said that the whale had been rotting for anywhere between 2 weeks or even several months before it was finally found. Pretty gross. Number 1. Giant pipes. Industrial parts wash up on the beach shore all the time, but some locals get a little more than they bargained for with this one. In 2017, beachgoers in Norfolk, England, were greeted by gigantic pipes stretching all along the sand. Just how big were they, though? Well, one of them was up to 1,500 feet long. The pipes were so big that a human could have easily walked right into their 8-foot wide opening. It was absolutely stunning, albeit a bit strange, considering something so massive and so heavy could ever be carried along by the current. The ocean, though, is mighty. Crowds gathered along the shore, snapping photos and speculating wildly about the origin of the enormous tubes, with theories ranging from secret military experiments to alien technology. Children clambered over them like makeshift playgrounds, while drone pilots launched cameras into the air to capture the surreal scale of the scene. Local news outlets quickly picked up the story, and within hours, images of the pipes had gone viral across social media. Tourists began arriving from nearby towns just to catch a glimpse, turning the stretch of beach into an impromptu attraction. Officials soon grew concerned that the sheer number of curious visitors could pose risks, especially if the pipes shifted unexpectedly with the tides. Environmentalists also voiced worries, wondering if the heavy structures might damage the fragile shoreline ecosystem if left too long. Emergency services had to monitor the area closely, ensuring that no one was injured while marveling at the colossal objects. But all this still begs the question, where the hell did they come from? Despite this metallic marvel, the answer was quite simple. They fell from a Norwegian boat on their way to an Algerian power plant. The unusual sight brought about plenty of onlookers and social media posts. The Norwegian company responsible for the pipes, Pipelife, urged onlookers to keep away from them. If one of those were to get swept back out to sea with swimmers still in the area, it could pose a major and potentially deadly situation. Luckily, a recovery team was quickly sent to the beach to clean it up, and nobody was hurt. Who knows how long it will take before the ocean finally reveals all its secrets? Which of these strange discoveries shocked you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.